Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where the orchard of wisdom shows are at your fingertips. It ignites your soul, your heart, your spirit, your mind, and your body with illumination from people who have made the journey before you. They're here now to help you on your journey, on your path of self-discovery. We are funded by you, the audience, and the people we interview. If you wish to support us, please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and press on our Fund Action button. Anything is appreciated. We'd like you to sit back and enjoy the shows. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Raising Our Gifted Children right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy. My wonderful repeat guest is Armin Brott. He was here a couple of years ago, kind of at the beginning of COVID, where we actually did a show on, Dad speaks to parent abuse during Corona. And I do invite you to go back and listen to that show, kind of to what was happening there. People get frustrated when being locked down, and they take it out on their kids. And it was a very, very insightful show. And when you think about it, that was at the beginning of it. And here we are 2 years later, still very much in the midst of it. So a very important show to listen to. And today we're going to be talking about a couple of his books, A New Father, A Dad's Guide to the Toddler Years, but an even newer book, The Expectant Father, The Ultimate Guide for Dads to Be. And, yes, dads need that information too. You don't just suddenly go from being a husband or the hot lover to, dad, and just think that overnight it's just going to be there. Certain things do kick in, but there's a lot of information you need to know. So he's a men's health analyst, and he's written many, many, many books, and all of them on a wonderful guidance system for you all. He thinks one of the biggest risks to civilization is a low birth rate and the rapidly declining birth rate. That's what Musk actually said. And, birth rates have plummeted, though during COVID, apparently they went up a bit, because I have a COVID grandchild. We're going to be talking about parenting. He's really the guy to go to. He knows all about it. And there's a lot of parenting tips that we need to know, isn't it? And especially those expectant fathers, the terrible twos, which then come back again as the terrible teens, except for the teens talk back, right? There's a lot of wonderful phases to go through as a parent. So welcome back to the show, Armin.
My pleasure to be here. Thanks so much.
So which book are we going to talk about, Father? The Expectant Father, before we get to the toddler years?
Well, the toddler years, you mentioned it coming back, the terrible twos coming back. There was actually a researcher, I think his name was Fitzhugh Dodson. It's a wonderful name, who called the toddler years first adolescence. That it's very much the same. It's go away from me. I want to do it myself. Leave me alone. I'm going to, it's articulated a little bit differently as an adolescent. I want to be myself. I want to explore my identities. But it's just a very similar kind of thing. It's kind of funny. A lot of people don't make that connection, but when you point it out to them, they say, "Oh, it's right. It's similar."
Yeah.
And
they don't have the vocabulary quite at the age of 2. So it's it's kind of a few words they do know with a lot of force, and then there's the vocabulary that follows in the teens, where you can't shut them up because they've got so much to say.
Yeah, but it's still black and white. They're still learning. Their brains aren't fully developed, and they don't realize that they aren't the center of the universe quite yet. Although it's becoming clear. It's becoming clearer and clearer for the teenagers that, oh no, you mean there are other people I have to worry about?
Yes, other people I have to think about, right? And again, let's go back to the expectant father. He's been that adolescent, grown into an adult. Gone through the various love stories, and then apparently found the one in the perfect world, and has now about to become a father. And it's a a totally different thing. Like it's not only is it's wonderful, you hold this baby and it's a whole new life there, but it's also the responsibility that comes with it, the accountability that comes with it. And what do I do now?
Yeah. Well, that's funny. That's the first question and the biggest question that has not changed over the course of the years. The first edition of the Expectant Father came out more than 20 years ago, and I've continually updated it and republished. And so now we're on the 5th edition, and it's a completely new book. I mean, it's twice as big as the old one, and there's almost nothing left of the original book. But what people ask me often is what's changed over the 20 years.
Yeah.
And in some ways a lot has changed, but in some ways it's that exact question that you just said. Now what do I do?
Help.
And that starts, of course, during the pregnancy, and that's a case that I've tried to make throughout. One of the reasons why I wrote the book is that the research shows that the earlier guys get involved, excuse me, the earlier guys get involved, the more involved they'll be. And that process starts before you actually have the baby. It starts during the pregnancy, going to the OB visits with your partner, asking a lot of questions, understanding that the process of becoming a parent is pretty significant for mothers. Absolutely no question about that.
Yeah.
But the psychological, from the neck up part, the psychological part of it is just as profound, and maybe even more so for dads, because we have fewer role models and we have fewer sources of support and inspiration. But it's just as important for dads to understand that you're going to be a very different guy when that baby shows up than you were the moment your partner said, hey, we're expecting. That your world is going to change, your worldview is going to change, your outlook, what you think about, what you're worried about, your career choices may change, your career direction may change, your priorities certainly will change. There's a wonderful image that some researchers here nearby at UC Berkeley, Phil and Carolyn Cowan, came up with. It was a pie chart, basically. We all have seen pie charts, just a circle. So you take this, draw a circle on a piece of paper and divide it up into sections of a pie, the various parts of your life. And if you're back to an adolescent, you draw that pie chart and it's all about me. The whole thing is me. And then as you get older, then you're going to divide it in half, and it's me, and then it's my partner. And then maybe later on you divide it in thirds. It's me and my work and my partner. And what happens is that the things get changed. And when you add that baby, that's when the me section gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. You spend more of your time on the baby, more and more of the time on the baby. You spend more time with your partner, hopefully. But that part can also shrink too, and the work part becomes less important for a lot of people. So it's fun to do that as an exercise. Do it when the pregnancy starts. Do it halfway through. Do it after your baby's a year old, and it's remarkable how much we change and how much we aren't even really aware of it until somebody points it out.
I was saying, before we went in the air, I recently become a grandmother. My grandson is 9.5 months old now. And my daughter married a wonderful partner, and right from the word go, she, morning sickness, he was there, granola bars, rubbing the back. Can I do anything for you? Like totally immersed in her well-beingness, and everything that she went through. And she was 41 weeks there. She was 48 hours in labor, and he was there the entire time. It was a complicated birth, relapsed bladder afterwards, and the whole thing that she had to go through afterwards. And he has been a totally and completely immersed, hands-on father, husband, and just partner there. And for my daughter's very strong-willed. You're having a baby with me, you are co-parenting. There is no one parent. She saw me do that, so she said, no, we're in it together. And they have the time things. He will get up at 4 with the baby, and she will get up later, and they have their whole schedule. And of course, babies are very, very demanding, especially in the early years. And so they realize at the present moment, their life is entirely the baby. Oh, while they were doing this, they were building the house as well. Wow. Moved in 2 weeks before the baby was born. So, wow. And, going through COVID. at the same time and everything else. So, talk about pressure. They really put it on themselves. But he really has stepped up to the plate. And they're both very, very immersed in the child. And she came up to me, I'm an hour and 40 minutes away, and she came up for the day. We're going to Bushell Gardens, and she left the baby with me for a couple of hours, and they went out for their first lunch together, their first meal together since they had the baby, and actually went shopping without the baby and kind of realized, gosh, we are actually two adults. It's not all about the baby. But I think that's something that an expectant father, or even maybe even mother, doesn't realize. That first year and a half really is kind of totally baby, isn't it? Everything is around that child. And then it gets to a point where you can leave the baby with the babysitter, with the grandmother, or the baby's going to sleep better through the night. There's just a little bit more breathing room.
Yeah.
But that first year especially it's you're just parents working for the baby.
Well, yes, but I got to say, it sounds like your daughter and your son-in-law are doing it exactly right, because what they've decided is apparently that they don't have to divide everything up exactly equally.
Right.
That they can do things at different times. As he can get up at 4 a.m. and she can get up later, as opposed to having them both get up at the same time and share the joys of midnight wake-ups, which are horrible. But if you do that and you say, well, you know what, I'm better at these particular tasks, and so I'm going to do those. And so it's not like we have to change. You change 6 diapers, I change 6 diapers.
Right.
It's nice. Everybody should change some diapers, but if you start dividing everything in half, it becomes really painful for everyone, and it's not the most efficient way to do it. But also,
and then it's like, well, you haven't done it. I've done 1 diaper more, and you're building up a ground there that's just going to be, a sewage pit at the end of it, isn't it?
Yeah, and also, I mean, another thing that they're doing right that I always recommend to expectant fathers and new fathers is be aware that your life is going to gradually, starting during the pregnancy, when you have your own job, you have your own life, you have your hobbies, it becomes less and less and less about that, and more about the baby. And pretty soon it becomes kind of, as you were alluding to, the 24-hour baby channel.
Yeah,
that's all we talk about. And so couples they're at high risk for relationship problems if they don't get out and do some things, if they don't devote some time every day to talking about something other than the baby.
Right.
Because if they just focus on the baby all the time and they don't take advantage of grandma to watch the baby for a little while so they can go out and have lunch together or see a movie or have sex or something.
Right.
I mean, if they don't do that, they'll find that they have less and less and less to talk about.
Right.
And if you look at divorce statistics, which nobody should do, but they just listen to this, but the group with the highest likelihood of divorce are parents with kids under 5, where they just have never really completely gotten back to their pre-baby level of communication and growth and development, because they're so focused on the baby. And it's super important to do exactly what you said, to say, in a way, just turn your life over to the baby for the first year. If you try to jam the kid into a schedule of eating, or if you try to force the baby to do things, you're going to be miserable. It's better to just say, all right, the he's in this particular kind of nap schedule. All right, we'll work with that, and we'll come up with what we need to do. After a while, of course, you're going to start with rules and regulations and all sorts of things. But so you need to, it's a Zen type thing. You need to figure out whether you're going to bend or break.
And I'm glad you said that. Oh, I'm so glad you said that. I refer to that all the time. I find it a great deal of people that have been on their own self-discovery. They've been on their own journey into becoming who they are. And now they found who they are, right? And they know what they want. But they're so scared of breaking, they've forgotten how to bend. And we have got to be flexible, because not everything is a straight line, and not everything is, the wind's going to blow. And you want your branch on your tree to be flexible, to go with the wind. Otherwise, it will break. And talking your mom and dad, don't forget you are husband and wife. Don't forget you are woman and man, whatever the partnership is you are a person that met another person, that created another person. But don't forget the original people.
Right. Well, it's not just mom and dad and husband and wife. It's also worker, employee, employer, son, daughter. that all of these other things, that there's the wind, but it's not always a wind from one direction. It's not always the same direction. Sometimes it's two directions at once.
Right.
You could be
Hurricane.
dealing with aging parents.
Yes.
And so then one of the baby's parents is going to have to step up and do a little bit more with the baby while the other one deals with the parents. I mean, there's so many things, and having a basic philosophy of we're in this together, we're going to support each other, things change. That, I mean, there are certain examples, certain times where there's one person who does nothing and the other person does everything. That's just completely not fair. But I think for most families, they generally have a let's do it together, let's figure out how to do this. And if you've got somebody who's got a really hard job, that needs to be taken into consideration. That maybe if that's the sole supporter of the family, okay, then that person really does need to get more sleep, perhaps, because he or she needs to be able to function during the day, but on the weekends will take over more of the child care, the baby care, in addition to mowing the lawn and taking out the trash and things.
Right.
But so it's really a question of, again, having some discussions. A lot of it is really just talking. The stuff doesn't take care of itself.
Right.
You need to sit down and say, what are we going to do, and how are we going to do it, and how are we going to divide things up today?
Yes.
Tomorrow may be different, but let's try to have a general philosophy, a general plan for moving forward. And that's another one of the things in the classes that I teach for expectant dads is to start having those conversations now, and to talk to each other in particular about the dad's role, because the mom and the dad are not always in the same place. Moms have a tendency to compare what the husband does to what she does. And often it turns out that he's doing less, or he's doing less of the things that are important to her, he may think. But the husband, the guys, have a tendency to compare what they're doing to what their own dad did, or what some other guy is doing. And so you've got mom is not happy, dad is pretty happy. And so you have to have a conversation about that, because if you just imagine it's going to take care of itself, you're sorely mistaken.
Right. So, please do not lead things kind of to boil. It's there's going to be a fire there somewhere. And it's also, I think, we know that sleep deprivation is there in the first months. I mean, even now, 9.5 months, they've still got that sleep deprivation, because I always used to nap when my kids napped. They won't do that. They can't do that. And I say, that's what new parents do. When my kids went down, even if I didn't sleep, it would be kind of a bit of a timeout. Not all the time, because obviously it's the time to kind of do the dishes and other things that you need to do, right? But when you can take advantage of that, do it. And they're not nappers, unfortunately. So of course, they're running on that minus clock all the time. This is not the time to kind of compare anything. This is not the time to even have a discussion. You're both so tired that you're going to end up nitpicking, and and start an argument's going to come out of just the fact that you're tired and you're both irritated and you just want to take it out on each other. That is not the time. So know your timing, right, when you want to bring something up.
Well, and understand that there are a whole bunch, particularly in the early months of parenthood, a whole bunch of factors that are conspiring against you and your relationship, really. That you've got, as you said, the craziness of the situation. The baby's schedule is all over the place. Parents are just generally not getting enough sleep. So there's that. They're also not talking, as we talked about. They're not talking to each other as much because they're both so tired. They're both afraid of bringing anything up because they're afraid it's going to turn into a big fight. They aren't spending time with friends and family as much as they used to. So there isn't as much to talk about. And these days, people aren't going to the office as much as they used to. So they don't have the funny stories about the guy that down the hall that used to do whatever crazy things. So there's not as much to talk about. They're not having as much sex as they think that they should be often. And so all of those things together really create an environment where problems can fester and explode. And so again, it gets back to and I suggest that people do this during the pregnancy. Try to put aside 15 minutes a day. In the beginning, it's not going to be a problem.
Mhm.
As you get towards the end of the pregnancy, it's going to be harder and harder, but 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day to just talk about something other than the baby.
Right.
And maybe
Yes.
these days we could say other than the baby and other than COVID.
And of course
Have
with them,
something.
other than building a house. Yes.
Right, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Just no more molding and trim
Right,
conversations.
exactly. And of course, unfortunately, they were caught up, as anybody in this last 2 years is caught up, is that normally you can go to the Le Mans classes, you can meet other expectant parents, and you can even kind of form, a bond with people where, now I had a friend where I would look after her kids and she and her husband can go out and vice versa. And you had that support group, right? And now, all of that has been taboo. It's all been done by Zoom. And you don't really kind of get to meet people. And, that's kind of what my daughter is finding right now, is that she feels so isolated because she's actually more in the countryside, of not meeting other parents with other kids. And that your kids need that,
Right.
and you need that. You need to have another. Do you know what he did then? Because it's just that little bit of bitch fest of getting it off your chest or sharing ideas. And we are at a time period where there's still that kind of isolation, or that not ability of just getting together and doing things. And so therefore you look to your partner to be it all, and your partner may not know it all, or they haven't got someone that they need to kind of get it off their chest. So it can be difficult, can't it, in these times?
It can be. I think there are ways of working around that. I mean, hopefully we'll get back to people going to parks and congregating, but I think for dads especially, it's a challenge. And I remember this from when I was an expectant father all 3 times, going to the park as a dad, and there would always be a group of moms in a corner of the park somewhere talking and exchanging stories about the most mundane things. I mean, certainly there's, oh my God, the baby did this, and then they all talk about that. Or where do you get the best diapers? Or who's got free meals for kids? Or whatever it is. But the dads are not always welcome in those situations, and they don't feel that they're welcome. So they might be welcomed more than they think they are, but they have a tendency to stay away. So dads go into the whole thing with fewer resources, and they're less likely to ask for help when they need it. And so there are places, there are dad support groups that are available online. There are dads blogging groups. There are different kinds of things like that are important resources for guys to be checking out, about how they can have a community of some kind and somebody to ask for help. Because one of the most comforting things is to realize that you're not the only person who's ever experienced this. That there are other people who have been through this same thing, and there probably are some people within your zip code who are going through it right now. And when we get back to the parks, go to the park. If you see a guy by himself, go say hello and say, hi, how are your kids, whatever. I talk about this with men when I do a lot of work in men's health. It's a sign of strength to ask for help.
I agree.
As opposed to a sign of weakness. And too many of us, whether it's a question of guys not going to the doctor until we're bleeding, and even then we wait, that because it's so, I don't want to be a wimp about it. I can handle this myself. It's the same thing with fatherhood. Is we don't want to ask for help because we don't want people to think that we can't do it, or we don't want to.
Or you don't know what you're doing, which is quite honestly, you don't know what you're doing.
Or you really don't know what you're doing. Right.
Exactly.
But either one of these can be a reason to not ask for help, and you just have to get to a place. Say, you know what, I can't do this on my own.
Yeah. They're lucky because their best friends had 2 kids before COVID. So not only did they get massive amount of toys and baby paraphernalia, but they were kind of a resource thing, but I remember I was at her place and they were busy doing something with the closets, and the baby was on the bed with pillows all around him. And unbeknownst to them, I mean, he could roll, but they didn't know he could roll over the pillow, and he fell off the bed. So of course the crying, I hear the thump, and you know, as a mother, you always know, oh, that's a different thump, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in tune. I go rushing up there. Of course, the baby's crying. He's holding the baby. My daughter's like, I'm a terrible mother. Why didn't I see
Yeah.
this coming? And the baby had a good cry and then looked at me and smiled. And he's fine. Well, no, what do you mean he's fine? Got the light out into his eyes. Has he got concussion? Do we need to run to the hospital? I said, no, he's fine. He'll have a good sleep. And when he wakes up, he'll be fine. And they checked him all over, but it was that first time I said, this is going to happen a lot. And of course, he's at that stage now where he wants to walk and he's climbing everything and he's top heavy. So he falls over and a little bump here and a little bump there, and they take it in their stride now. But that first time anything happens, I'm a terrible parent. And it's like, you can be as cautious as you want, but stuff is going to happen. And it's, the calmness of dealing with it at the time, to know, when it's time to go to the hospital or not.
Yeah.
But these are learning curves, right? And today, of course, they've got Google. They immediately Google it. What do you do when this happens?
Yeah. Well, there's a metaphor that I can't even remember where I heard this in the first place. It was about looking at what happens when you drop a pacifier. Your baby spits a pacifier out. With your first baby, you pick it up and you rush to the faucet and you wash it off very carefully with soap and water. With the second baby, you pick it up and you probably put it in your own mouth and rinse it off. And the third baby, you just pick it up and you brush it off and you give it back to them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's you realize slowly that they're
tougher than you think.
Indestructible is a strong word.
Yeah.
They can take a pretty good thump. And I mean, I had a similar kind of thing with my oldest, who, when she was maybe 4 months old and not able to roll over. Mm-hmm. She was in a bassinet, so one of those things that's got a wall about this big. And I was on the phone and I turned around for a moment and I heard the thump. Mm-hmm. And I flip around. She had somehow put together, and this can happen sometimes, a couple of moves that are 1 in a million things for a baby that age, and somehow catapulted herself out of there and landed on a rug, and she squawked for a little while and she's fine. And I always take refuge in the fact that she went to college, took AP calculus. So
no brain damage there, yeah.
no brain damage as far as we could tell. But these things happen.
Yes, they do.
And it's a natural response to say, oh my God, I'm a terrible parent. And you know what? All right, so you learn something.
Yes.
You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. Watch your kids a little bit better next time.
Right. Yeah.
But we all, you're not going to get everything right all the time.
No.
And
I'm going to share a tip here, though, for anybody that when a kid does do that and gets the owie and the bruise, that it's coming up. Hard boil an egg. While the egg is still hot, take the shelf off, rub the hard-boiled egg on the area. There's an enzyme in the egg that brings the bruising out from first stage to last stage. At first they go, oh, it's hot. Then it's nice. And it does something that draws it all out. It eases the pain. And, you can go from that, before even the bruise comes out, when it comes out, it's kind of purple. And then it goes into that light kind of greeny blue. It will take it straight to the greeny blue. And it takes the swelling down and everything else. Unfortunately, my daughter and her husband are vegan, so they have no eggs around. But if you're not vegan and you've got eggs around, I don't know how many times I've done this, including the teenage years, where I ran into a wall, Mum, and the hard-boiled egg has come out, and it works every time. So it's a great tip for anybody, and we, get those little knockaroos. It's wonderful on bruising.
I had no idea.
Yeah, but my ex-husband is Chinese, and somebody was passing our daughter to me, and she let go before I grabbed her, and she hit the corner of the table, and a big wackaroo, and he immediately got the egg out. There is it, been done ever since. So, yeah.
Wow.
It works. It works. Simple measures.
That's bad news for those of us who really like to see the bruises.
Yes, exactly. Put your matrism away. But the thing is, it's everybody kind of thinks, that first, I mean, yes, accidents do happen. I grew up with a friend up the road. Her father was a doctor, and it was the time before they put bars on the heaters, the bar heaters. And she was crawling and she put her entire hand over the bar. And of course, it melted on the bar even when they switched it off. You know, she ended up with just melted flesh over this bar. I mean, that catastrophic. And you know, they put bars on it after that. But you know, there are certain things like he's at that climbing and crawling and getting it into mischief stage where you have to be, okay, things need to be raised up. Things need to be cushioned. Corners on the tables need to be put in place. You know, it's like precaution. You know, okay, this is the stage we're at. Yeah, they're going to look to getting into trouble any way they can because they're exploring. They don't know, they can't, they're just going to do. And, you know, they'll find things under the couch that you thought were never there or that you lost a year ago,
Yeah.
you know, and it's like, yes, take some various cautionary things, but if something does happen and you've taken all the cautions, or, you know, don't beat yourself up about it, because there are very few people that ever intend to really hurt their children. It just,
Right.
but accidents do happen. Of course, you do have those people that do, and for various reasons, but
well, they're not listening to the show, though.
they're certainly not listening to this show. And it's like, stuff will happen, and it's what you do from that, you know, that counts. And one of the other things, please, parents, do not blame each other. That is, you know, oh, talk about, you know, the virus that is going to become an omnicom completely if you start blaming each other.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, though, is preparing yourself properly. And that's to get back for a moment just to the books. That's why I wrote them, is for people to understand what's coming next.
Yes.
And you're talking about childproofing. I mean, I've got sections in the Expectant Father about that before you have your baby, you should be crawling around on the floor. Pretend you're a baby. And all of a sudden, if you think of yourself, you look down and you see, wow, there's an outlet.
Yes.
And you know what? That looks like the perfect place to put that pair of scissors that I just found over there, which shouldn't be there, of course. Right. But, and then, you know, the potato chips under the couch that, of course, I would throw them away. But, well, I remember as a kid, I ate a light bulb, piece of a light bulb. For I mean, the most ridiculous reason, because I thought it was a potato chip that was under the couch. So I ate it, but it was a light bulb, and, you know, spit it all out. But I mean, I was old enough to know better. But
and just spit it out. It doesn't taste like a chip.
Well, it was a little crunchier than I thought the potato chip should be. But yeah, and then you see the cords hanging down from the drapes, and that looks like something you should put your neck in there. Well, so you start thinking, as opposed to just saying, okay, we're going to childproof. It's more than that. It's really getting down and putting yourself at child level and looking at the world. And then when you're crawling around, you see that if you stand up quickly, you're going to hit your head on the bottom of a table or a chair. Well, okay, then so maybe not just the corners, but maybe sometimes the underside of a table needs to be padded a little bit too.
Right.
And those chairs, looks like you could lean on them, and kids realize before they can walk that they can push the chair along. Yes. Well, some chairs
pull it over.
Right. Maybe you need to put something on the bottom of the chair leg so they don't slide quite so easily. The things that it becomes a huge job if you think you're going to do it in one day, but if you do it a little bit at a time, you can do that. But it's a question of not just preparing in a physical way for what's going on, but also preparing your head. Yeah. How are you going to adapt to this particular stage of pregnancy?
Yes. I mean, I know it can all sound quite horrific until you have that child in your arms. But, you know, we look at back because, you know, the beauty of Google Pictures now, you know, shared back and forth. There's thousands of pictures of this little 9.5-month-old at various stages. And now and again, she does a side-by-side, 3 months to the 9 months. And it's like, is that the same child? And he's now doing this and he's now doing that. And the thing about that first year or that first 2 years, the exploration is just, you know, everything is a wonderment. Let me try everything. There is no sense of, oh no, I shouldn't do this. This is dangerous. It's just, let's explore. And it's wonderful because they need to do that. That's part of their development. And to watch them explore and discover this and discover that is exciting. It's like they're doing this now, they're doing that now, and it's wonderful. But yeah, it can be a little hair raising because there's the safety factor along the way. But don't take a deep breath. Don't worry about it. It's just like learning this knowledge now and learning the knowledge in the books beforehand prepares you for when that time comes, so it's not so overwhelming.
Yeah, but there's another piece of this, which is, and you touched on it very briefly when you said watching them, that they don't need to be entertained or managed every moment.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I think with couples now, young couples, where they both work hard, they come home at the end of the day, or when a lot of people are going back to work now, so that when they come home and they feel that they want to pack every learning experience and everything into the time, that kids need time to learn to be independent. And you can just sit on one side of the couch and watch your child play.
Yeah.
And I tell the guys that in my classes that I teach at a hospital here, that if I could give them a gift, it would really be the gift of time.
Yeah.
That they would just relax, because it's something that older parents tend to do more than younger parents. But it's wonderful to be able to see the world that way, to be able to see the funny things that they do, and to see how they learn things.
Yes.
They pick something up and they're building a little tower, and they finally get the second block on top of the first, and it falls over, and then they try it again, they move it over a little bit closer to the center line, and you just see how they learn. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And if we jump in and save them every time they fall down, we're doing damage, I think.
But they're not learning to get back up. They're always going to be somebody else going to be there to help us back up, and that's not always the case in life. Right?
No, and it's actually interesting. One of the differences that researchers have observed between fathers and mothers is when they've got their toddlers, for example. They'll be walking out with a toddler, and dads tend to wait a few seconds longer than moms do before picking up a falling toddler. That moms are jumping in to pick them up, and the dads are basically saying, let's just see, I think you can do this.
Yeah.
If you can't, I'll help you, but give it a try. And that, having that exposure to dad or to somebody who waits a few seconds longer, helps kids a lot. It helps make them more perseverant. They're less likely to give up and look around and wait for somebody to save them, and instead of, I'll try it again. All right, it didn't work out the first time, let's do it again. That's an attitude that comes only from multiple opportunities and multiple failures. And I think in a way, but that's, I think in a way, that's what's something that's plaguing younger generations.
Yes.
Is that a lot of today's young people have not had the opportunity to fail, because their parents have jumped in and saved them from everything and have rescued them. Whether that means, and I heard from people who are admissions directors at colleges, that parents are coming with the kids to the interviews, or they're going on job interviews with their kids, or they're calling college professors and arguing about their kids' grades. I think,
back
off. No,
Yes.
You're hurting your child that way.
Yeah.
You're telling your kid, I don't think you can do it without me, which is a terrible message to send. But it's worse than that. It's a terrible message to internalize, because then you've got a kid who should be able to be self-sufficient, but can't take care of herself because she's waiting for somebody to come in and save her.
Yeah.
So it's not to hammer too badly on young people these days, which we've been doing for thousands of years. But it's something to think about, that there definitely has been an attitude shift since you and I were kids. And when our parents said, what? Just get up. Just pick yourself up.
It's interesting because the cry. They're in trouble, they're really hurt. It's almost and then it comes out, and this is a definite cry, you need comforting. But then there's the am I going to get picked up?
Right.
And it's like, oh, you hurt yourself, come on, you can do it. Okay, the tears aren't going to work. All right. So that's grandma. Right. But also I used to put my kids in the playpen with their toys and ignore them. I mean, my eye was on them, but ignore them. and let them do their thing. And in the midst of all of this too, my kids together went and bought another house to make an Airbnb out of it. And I would be there every weekend looking after the baby while they are putting in new doors and windows and this and that. And it was a nightmare for him to crawl around because there's sawdust and there's wires and there's everything else. So, I said, okay, in the playpen, let him play. And the wonderful thing, I was watching him, he's just playing away. And honestly, just put the toys down. And he had this beautiful smile on his face, like a wonderful thought was going through his head. And it was his thought from something he was doing. And it was wonderful to see. And if you're doing it with him all the time, it's not the same reaction. The other thing is a lot of younger parents don't want to come across as too cross with their children. Oh, yeah. So like he's going, although they've got all the plugs covered, it's still, no, Rowan, no. And I'm going, Rowan, no. And he looks at me and I go, And he said, but you're frightening him, Mum. And I said, no, he's going to get to know that tone means business. Then no, Rowan, and aren't you cute, Rowan? And he's like, he pulls Dad's beard and Dad goes, ouch. And he laughs when Dad goes, no. But if it's a different tone, right, just a different tone, okay, you mean business, right? And we don't have to be cruel, we don't have to be harsh, but there has to be a different tone to the consequences. Otherwise, they're always going to think you're just playing with them.
Well, and it's so important because that type of thing teaches empathy.
Yes.
That you learn, and you learn in particular from wrestling with your dad, that there's a limited number of times you can elbow your dad in the mouth before he says, we're not playing anymore. Exactly. And you learn that, ouch, I don't like that. And you don't learn it by pinching your kid back. That's right. No. If you say, that hurt me, and now I'm putting you down and we're not going to play anymore. Right. Boundaries. There we are. And then your child learns that. But if dad says, ouch, and laughs about the whole thing, then you want to do it again. Yes. But you want to make it, this is the whole mission of parenting, is we want our kids to be able to make good decisions by themselves. Yeah. Without us to be there. And that process starts with exactly the kind of thing that you're talking about, is by saying things in a way, and not an abusive way, of course. Right. But saying things in a firm way that indicate that this is not a game. Right. That you're doing something to hurt another person, that's not okay. Right. So, and if in the beginning they don't understand what hurt means, they don't even understand what another person means. Right. They don't understand what hello means. No, the world revolves completely around them. But they're like cats. Yes. Or dogs, that they understand a tone of voice. And you snap at your dog, and the dog's tail goes down, and they get all pouty, and they wonder what they did, and they learn after a while. Okay, when you bark like that or you jump up on me, I'm not going to play with you. Right. Oh, got a little frozen there for a moment. And for real, whatever discipline means in your world, but it just doesn't work. Right. And the thing is, with a child, that consistent tone needs to be repetitive, because they're going to try and try and try from all different angles to keep doing something. And it's only when that repetitive and they go, okay, this means I can't do something. Finally they'll get it, but they're still young. And you're going to be having to do a lot of over a lot of stuff before they finally get it. Don't get mad with them because they're not getting it straight away. It is their duty as a child to explore every avenue. And they don't know which avenue is good or not, or which avenue is they shouldn't be doing that or shouldn't be doing this. It's like petting the cat. You don't want them to grab the fur, but you take their hand and you stroke, put a nice sound to it. Gentle. All right. And if they look like they're going to grab, and we're guiding them as to what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. Don't expect them to know it. They're not going to know it unless you teach it. And it's not something that you can say just one time. No, over and over again. That's with dads, knowing, having done so much research on dads and child development and and father's expectations of things, we have a tendency as men to be a little bit unrealistic of what we
I
can
told
expect.
you once.
Right, that's it. Told you. I told the kid to stop. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, even when it comes to just playing games, is that dads will roll a ball to their 9-month-old baby, and the baby will ignore it, or will look at it with the baby. Wouldn't even occur to the baby to try to push it back.
Right.
But we just assume, well, everybody knows that it's a ball. You push it back. I pushed it at you. You push it at me. It takes a lot longer for these things, and it takes mind-numbing amounts of repetition.
Yes.
To get to a point where things happen, where change occurs. But that's what it's about, and we all learn as parents also that we're changing and developing, we're adjusting, because we figured out the perfect sequence of events to get the baby to go to sleep, and that works, and then it doesn't.
Yes.
And then you got to figure something else out. Yes. Or you figured out that the kid loves this story. Well, yeah, the kid loves the story 374 times, and on time 375, he doesn't want to hear a word of it.
Right.
And you're going to have to find another story.
Yeah.
And so we're learning, we're changing, we're adjusting our behavior to what's appropriate for the kid.
Right.
And
they've been reading to him since he was born.
Wonderful.
And so now the reading time has become calm down time, and they read to him every night before going to bed. So the child knows it's a calming time, not playing around time. And so if he gets too wound up in the day, let's read a book, or definitely before going to bed or a nap, read a book. And sometimes he's really immersed in the book, or he's trying to eat it, or he's trying to tear it. But the thing is, the book is there, he's seeing the pictures, he's being read to, and sometimes he's engrossed and sometimes he's not. It's never too early to put in a good habit, is it? Plus, there's no TV. The only screen he has is when he Zoom times mama, grandma, or granddad, because we live apart. So, and we will do screen time, and he knows it's me immediately, and we're having this conversation, and he's in his whole little thing. So he doesn't, oh, it's on a screen. No, grandma's just there. He doesn't know how I'm there on this little square thing, right? But there is no TV for him. There is no computer time for him or anything other than, when it is connecting.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Reading, I advocate reading from even during pregnancy, to read to the baby during the pregnancy, because one of the things that will do, especially for dads who feel a little bit less connected, is they can feel more connected to the baby. And then within an hour after the birth, if they start reciting the book that they've read 100 times during the pregnancy, which they'll have memorized by then, the baby will turn to look at them. Which is a really amazing thing, because all of a sudden this abstract baby that's been growing in your partner's belly looks at you, and it recognizes your voice. You're having a conversation. It really tends to bring dads so close to their babies. And so the reading is absolutely critical.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of it used to be the video, putting your kid in front of the video or the TV. And, if you're going to do that a limited amount of time, but encourage the reading. My kids always had the time out in their own rooms to do their own thing, whether it was drawing, whether it was reading, whether it was playing with something, but learning to be at peace and comfortable with themselves. Which I think is something that's really, really important, of being comfortable with yourself. It's wonderful when you're around other people, and when they put plays on, they do all sorts of things, their creativity came out. But I think it's really essential that a child learns to be comfortable in their own space, their own time.
I want to just mention something about screens, since you mentioned them, that it's so important for particularly parents of young kids and into the toddler years, is that we all need to take a shower sometime or make a phone call. You need to park your kid in front of a screen for 5-10 minutes. Okay, that's fine. The problem is when it becomes the babysitter. And there have been studies that show that little kids, and you can find the videos of this all over the place on YouTube, of babies swiping across a tablet or trying to swipe on an actual magazine to turn the page. It's so cute that because they know the tablet so well. But what's happening is little kids, your grandson's age, are not developing the fine motor skills that come from actually putting blocks on top of each other,
Right.
because it's pretty hard to do that if you really don't know
The
what you're
coordination.
doing.
Yeah.
But if you just take your hand and you drag something from one end of a screen to the other, it doesn't take a lot of coordination to do. And so they're not getting the fine motor skills or the fine motor development that kids of those ages used to have at younger ages. So there's that. And then there's also the problem with the educational videos and things, even Sesame Street, which is a wonderful thing. But if you think about it, the way that you learn how to talk is the baby says "baba," and you say, "Oh yeah, that's your bottle," or you say, "Oh, yes, that's what sheep say. What does a duck say?" And we engage them in conversation, and they understand the back and forth.
Right.
But if they say "baba" to the duck or the sheep on Sesame Street, they're not getting anything back.
Right.
And so the reading to kids, the stopping and talking about it and saying in the process of your child trying to eat the book, well, where's the moon? Where's the dog? It just talking about things. And then later as they get older, it's why did this person do that? Or where is this person? And they have to go find them in the other book. To get them engaged and get them in conversation, there's no question that kids who get read to have larger vocabularies. They do better in school. Kids who do better in school go farther in life. I mean, there's no question. Not everybody has to go to college, of course, but you want to at least set your kid up for as much success as possible. And reading and exposure to live language, meaning back and forth, where there's gentle corrections of things. Of course, there's always those words that they mispronounce that are insufferably cute that you don't want them to ever stop, and you miss it when it's gone. But just grammar kinds of things, or what we know how that's how we learned is by talking and making mistakes, and somebody corrected us, and we figured out how to do it eventually. But if you just park your kid in front of a TV and expect some educational video to educate them, Baby Einstein or whatever, it's not going to happen. And you're going to be ending up doing a disservice to your child rather than what you hopefully hope for, which is a better educated child.
You know, one of the things I've actually got a show with somebody coming on in about teenage youth, that next generation who simply do not know how to talk to one another because everything is texting and emojiing and everything else. They've lost the art of language in many, many ways. And, you know, this is the danger of it, is that we've become abbreviators. And abbreviators of our emotions, abbreviators of everything, and everything is kind of the shallow surface, just going down a couple of centimeters instead of going down into a depth of exploration, a depth of understanding. And that depth of understanding comes from that always wanting to know, always willing to learn, always willing to explore, that conversation of learning from one another, being intrigued, you know, of willing to listen. The art of conversation should never die, because if it does, we go along with it. And I feel that we're losing that a great deal to the apparatuses, and that, you know, they're wonderful. We're doing this through a computer right now, you know, and yes, everything has its place. Use it as the tool it's meant to be, but don't use it as an in place of.
Right. Yeah, I think what we're missing is the emotional side of
yes
it. Even the Zoom part is devoid somewhat of emotion, and we're not learning. I mean, along with the other things that kids in this pandemic period are not learning, they're not learning how to deal with emotions, with strong emotions, with fury. And that's when with parents, at some point, every parent is going to have a feeling of a strong desire to throw their child out a window. Because because they just can bring that out in us. But if you don't have the ability to interact with other people and to understand how some people can just get you so pissed off and so happy. I mean, it's the full gamut of emotions. It's not just the negative ones, but we're not learning how to deal with them. And kids especially, at least we have a reservoir of emotional experiences as adults. But kids who haven't been to school for 2 years, they don't understand what it feels like to be pushed over physically, knocked over, and then to be picked up and given a hug by the teacher. They don't, it's not there. And that's what concerns me more than almost anything else about this whole pandemic time, is that they're missing the
interaction,
the kinds of things that only come from physical contact.
yes. Yeah.
Human
You know,
contact.
they're all around the table and everybody drawing or sharing a toy and doing things together. You know, we are a species that is better together. We are a species that needs to be the tribe, needs to be the village. We are better with our counterparts. And there's always somebody that kind of is a leader in this and somebody else that's a leader in that. And we only discover that through our own integration. And the more we have the isolation, whether it be through COVID or whether it be going completely down to, I mean, there's so many children now that really don't know actually how to handwrite, because everything now is done on the keyboard. And it's, again, these tools are wonderful because now you can talk to people from around the world and learn a great deal more. But we cannot forget the basics and how important those basics are on, you know, hand to mind, the actual physical writing, and you know, to the mental, and the expression of self. And you know, as I said, my kids always had a huge big chest of dress up clothes, and they would have their friends over and they'll put on the plays and they'll put on the things, and they be beautifully ridiculous, and they would always bring a wonderful smile to your face and a big laugh, and they'd be so proud of themselves for putting this together. And it was wonderful because it was them exploring their expression, and we want to encourage that in our kids, and it's very hard to do that this way. Hopefully we're out of it soon and we can get our kids back together. And I think that's very, very important, is whether you're an expectant father, toddler, teenager, whatever parent you are, at whatever stage you're at, when it is safe to do so, get back together with groups of other people with the kids. Even if they go, I don't want to go, I don't want to talk to them, just put everybody in the same arena. And, you know, eventually they'll connect.
Without technology.
Without technology. No phones. Yeah.
I mean,
other than maybe some music.
Music is okay, but I mean, even the parents have to watch this stuff. It's just because if you think, dads in my classes are always asking, well, should we get one of those monitors that makes white noise so that the baby can sleep, or should we get one of those things? I can't remember the name of it now, but it's some kind of a little hammock you put the baby in and it rocks the baby. You think, well, it sounds like a great idea, but what happens if the power goes out? The baby's not going to be able to go to sleep. And should we get a night nurse who can handle the midnight feedings? No, you need to know how to handle a crying sleep baby who needs to be fed in the minute. You need to develop these skills. And so it's part of the whole parenting thing is raising our children and helping them develop the skills. But part of it is also understanding that there are skills that we need to be developing as well, and that those skills are going to change as our kids get older. We're going to need different skills, and we need to be constantly open to revising and retooling our own education as parents. I
mean, I think the beautiful thing about being a parent is what you discover about yourself. You know, as your children are in discovery at various stages, what it brings out in you, or memories it brings out in you, or the childlike, you know, enthusiasm that it brings out in you. And it's like, allow yourself, you know, I call it the silly buggers, you know, be silly, be silly. I used to go and put on We Are the Champions, and we'll all dance like and sing along like crazy, or do, you know, if my kids were fighting, I start singing opera and anything to shut me up. You know, it's like, be silly along with your kids sometimes, and let them know that it's not just about I'm the teacher and you're the pupil. It's that, you know, we can be silly too. And I think it's play with your kids, whatever age group they're at, play with them. And I promise you, as a teenager, it doesn't matter what you do. You're embarrassing me, Mom. You're embarrassing me, Dad. That just goes with the territory, right?
So drop them off a block away, and that's fine.
Yes. My son snapped his femur in half when he was 13, and you know, it was kind of a fairly long recovery and all of that. And then it is, and he was already kind of, you know, the 5'10" or 11 at that point, you know, and I was in hospital with him, and of course, because of his age, they had him in, you know, the youth thing, and there was a child 4 years old across the way that in the bed, you know, you could hardly see him, and there's my son with his feet kind of sticking out the end of the bed, and it's like he couldn't move or anything else, and I was there every night. You know, I was there all the time. I would go home, cook, clean, shower, make sure all the other kids are all right, and I've got a team of people looking after them, and go back to the hospital. And it was good in so many ways, because he could stop being the teenager and go back to being the child and allow mum to be there, right, at the vulnerable time period. But it's, your kids are always going to need you as parents, no matter how old you are. But as older, you know, as they get older, they're going to go through that defiant stage where you know nothing. You're just a moron, you know, especially as you get really, you're just old. And I remember with my daughter, it's like, no, we're going to have the first couple of weeks with the baby just as on our own. And then you can come down later. We've got it all thing. And then I had bought a car just beforehand, because I didn't need it before then. I bought a car just before then, and I waited. Mom, can you come down? And then it's like, how did you do it with 3 children? And I said, I don't remember. I just did it.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Changes happen so much, especially in that first year or two, that, you know, oh, I've got this down. And then tomorrow it's changed all again. And you just do what you need to do when you need to do it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a great quote by Mark Twain about this, who said something along the lines of, when I was 14, my father was the stupidest man alive. And by the time I got to be 21, I was amazed at how much he'd learned over that time.
Yeah. Yes. And you know, I go down there a great deal. I spend a lot of time with them now, and it's like the little suggestions I make, or the little things I do now, it's okay. You know, it's listened to. And that's the thing. Learn from each other. Please learn from the people who've just had kids before you. Learn from your own parents. Don't go, well, in your day, we did it differently. Yeah, maybe we didn't have all these, you know, white sounds and this and that, and we didn't have all these wonderful toys that you've got that, you know, that can look after your kid for you. No, we were hands-on. You know, we had to work it out. Have the benefit of our wisdom. Whether you use it or not, it's there. And there will be a time it'll come up, you know, I remember mom saying this, or dad saying this. Let's give it a try. All right. But please be open to other people's suggestions, or watching what other people are doing. There's no shame in saying, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Somebody help. Right? No shame in that at all.
None at all. Yeah.
So you have got so many books here. There's the ones that I'm looking at is The Expectant Father, The New Father, Another New Father, Fathering Your Toddler, Father for Life, and The Single Father. You've even got it in Spanish, and The Best Birth. How many books have you actually got? You've got a lot out here.
There's about 30 of them.
Wow. Balancing your brain, balancing your life. I mean,
yeah, it's
where do you have time?
Somebody who never intended to be a writer. That's
it obviously pours right out at you. So, you know, when people say, well, I don't know, well, this guy does, and he's written about it. So
well, my kids will be glad to tell you how little I know.
Oh, of course. You know, again, you know, my kids are all in their 30s. My son and his partner, now she came to the relationship with a 7-year-old who's now an 8-year-old. And they're living together, and he was very nervous about at first, you know, do I want to take on a child? And now he was a natural born father, and now he just seems to have stepped right into parenthood and enjoying it, which is wonderful to see. You don't know. I mean, I'm never going to do that, and life comes along and sells something differently. Please be willing to adjust. Don't put those blockages in the way, because you don't know until you open up, right? So
and step parenting is a tough job.
Yeah. Have you written a book on that yet?
No, but I've talked about it somewhat in various things, but it's something I need to do.
Yes.
My girlfriend has two children. They're both in their 20s, but there's still a parental
Yeah.
stuff that gets into the relationship.
You're not my
It's
dad.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's true, and you have to understand that
Yeah.
it's true, and you won't be unless the person has died, the other parent has died. But it's a special relationship. You're going to be putting in a lot, and the best you can hope for is that you can become friends.
Hmm.
And if it develops into love, wonderful. If it doesn't, you tried, and it
Yeah.
doesn't always.
Yeah.
But again, it's as you've been saying, keep an open mind
Mm.
and be there in a way that you can have a lot of conversations with your partner about what's expected, what's going to be supported, what she or
Hmm.
he wants from you. It's not, again, it's just not easy. I mean, I've been on both sides of it. My former wife came in as a stepmother and had a lot of difficulties with it.
Hmm.
Some of them were created by her, some of them were created by the kids.
Yeah.
And some I think were probably made worse by things that I did or didn't
Mm.
do that I should have done or should have not done. It's complicated.
Hindsight makes for a good writer.
Oh, yes, all the things that I did perfectly. If that I would have done perfectly, but
Yeah, had
I'll
I paid
I'll
attention.
claim,
Yeah, exactly.
claim I did them
Yes.
perfectly.
But I think that's definitely the next book. I'm definitely got to have you back on that one. And I think definitely in today's day and age, there are so many people. A broken marriage used to be, and now it's like really kind of quite commonplace because we're very different people at different stages in our life, and if we don't grow with our partner, we grow apart, and that's just the way it is. And then children are the ones that in a lot of ways become the victim of it, and sometimes it can work really, really well. I know many relationships where the stepdad actually has become the dad because they were there. They stepped up, they became that parent, whereas maybe the actual real father was absent. And so it's the guidance system needs to be there for sure. And it's like, but it is, please respect what they're going through. You're also going through something totally new, and just navigate together and remember to be open to have conversations, even with the children, right?
Yeah.
Definitely with the
That's
children.
the key to the whole thing. Everything we've been talking about. If really the mom and the dad, whether they're newlyweds or they've been in it for a long time, the importance of conversations and being able to have a conversation without judgment. And it's hard. It is really hard. I'm not saying that it's easy to just sit down and listening to the other person and trying to hear what they're saying. And there's all these gimmicks if you can repeat back what they say and mirroring and all sorts of things, or you can just listen and just think that this is the person that I fell in love with for a reason.
Yes.
And I'm gonna go with that. It's not to minimize the difficulty, but it all comes back to that, is that so many of these things can be worked out or at least made less painful by understanding that there's somebody who's with you and who cares about you and is supporting you.
A tip that I would give, having been on the one end, very often you want to say something and you can't because the emotions are too high. Please don't say anything at that time. Just say, not at this moment. I need to take a walk. I need to take a breath. The other is write it down. Write it down, read it back to yourself and go, do I really want to say this? And then rewrite it where you can actually give it to them, because now you really do want to say that. The anger, the angst, the is out of it, and let them read it in their own time and their own, digest it in their own way. And then when you come together, you've got something to talk about instead of being reactionary towards one another. So I think it's a great tip that really does work. I find that men actually are better at kind of reading something than being told something. So I don't know if that's true of all men, but from my experience, it has been. And I think also a stepdad writing to a child that's come into their life, and whatever the age group, and saying, no, I'm not your father, but I'd like to be a father type figure to you. We're both on neutral ground here. Let's build something together and invite them to be a part of that journey. It will be a letter, whatever the reaction is at first, it will be a letter that will be in the drawer that will be read over and over again.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So
wise advice.
So, the focus is that there are things that you can know, and the more you know, the more it goes into your toolbox. And, when something comes up, oh, okay, yeah, okay, I know what to do here, or I know how to prepare here. But there's an awful lot of parenting that literally is by the seat of your pants, just in the moment. And a lot of it is take a deep breath. That this kid isn't out to get you. Right? It's not depriving your sleep because it wants to get you. It's the part of being a parent. And I promise you, despite the sleep deprivation, the joy that a child is going to give you in your life will last you for your entire. My kids are 33, 37, and 39. And we have a beautiful relationship, and we still, have, those moments where beautiful joy comes into our lives. And it's, understand we do have to work on it, right? It's not just, oh, I'm just their mother and that's the way it is, or I'm their father and that's the way it is. No, as in any relationship, we all have to work on it.
You can have that kind of relationship if you want. I think it's less satisfying. Just, yeah, I'm your dad, you just do it because I said so.
Right.
Okay. That's one way of doing things, which ensures that neither of you will ever really get to know the other one.
Right.
If you are interested in having a better relationship, a closer relationship, perhaps one that's got some bigger ups and downs, but better, then, I'm your dad. I have some experience, but you know what? You may be able to teach me something too.
Exactly. Two-way street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yes. It just, we're not given it doesn't matter if you have actually a manual with you when you become a parent. Whatever's in the book, it's not always what's happening in reality, right? It's good to have a certain amount of backup and certain things, so don't worry about that, or yeah, you can do that in this situation. But a lot of it is just in the moment, being supportive of each other. You're in this together. And, it's an absolute beautiful job being a parent. And to remember, we are custodians of our children. We do not own them, right? They are our responsibility as they grow up, as we guide them and lead them. But we're there to actually witness and be a part of their own self-discovery, their self-exploration of who they are in the world. And it could be a beautiful journey along the way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So getting hold of your books, I've got it right here on your posting, but your
favorite bookstore, anywhere you can get them. If you order books, you can do it that way. If you want to get them from, well, not from me, my links are to Amazon and Barnes and Noble also, but on mrdad.com, mrdad.com, there's all the books, a couple of hundred, I don't know how many hundreds of newspaper columns, and probably 500 radio shows there. That's all available at that site, and it's all free.
Right.
Not the books, but
no, obviously. But if people want to get hold of you and what you're offering in any courses or any support, and they just go to your site and everything is there as well.
Drop me a line. There's a contact me, and you can get a hold of me that way, or just send anything to whatever you want, Bozo the Clown at mrdad.com. It'll all get to me.
Wonderful. And fathers to be, or fathers that are our fathers now, please, there is no shame in just saying, I don't know, and I need help, and I need someone to talk to. It is more courageous to say, I need more information, than trying to say, I don't need it. I'm sorry, that doesn't work anymore. We want you as a co-parent there to go and ask questions, to go and get as much information as you can, because then you're more supportive, and vice versa with us women. We're going to ask as many questions as we can, and then come back together and share the information. And, and it isn't one size that fits all.
Well, no, there's also the extra little piece here, which is that when you ask for help, you're going to become more confident.
Yeah.
When you're more confident, you're going to get in there, you're going to start doing stuff. And then you're going to develop your own techniques,
Yes.
which can help somebody else.
Yes.
So you can actually be the person who gives help to the next person, the guy who's a few years younger than you, who's just having kids. So it helps to ask for help. You become part of the continuum of wonderful parenting, or at least good enough parenting.
Right, exactly. And, basically at the end of it, if your kid comes out whole, there haven't been too many breakages, they're doing well in school, they like themselves, right? They like themselves, which is a big one. And they got a good group of friends, and they grow up to kind of really, they're going to go off the rails for a while in some way, because that's part of what happens, but they're coming back. If you've given them enough love at their core, enough sensibility, enough self-worth, and enough support, then doesn't matter where they go in life, they'll always come back to that core. So you make sure that that core is really, really strong. The family core, the core that you give themselves and love. As I used to say to my kids, I may not like you right now, what you're doing, but I'll never stop how I love you. That like has got nothing to do with love, right? I don't like your decisions, but I still love you. And please never use love as a weapon. Please, never.
No.
Never. Oh, chills. No. Thank you so much for being here again. I love having you on. When you've written that book on step parenting, please come back. I know it's needed desperately out there. And because, it's a very sensitive ground when two people come together, especially if you both have kids, and now you're expecting the kids to get on, and it can be a nightmare. It's not all like the Brady Bunch, right? So so that book is needed. Love to hear all about it.
Working on it. All right. Thanks a lot, Sarah.
Thanks so much. And to everyone else out there, it doesn't matter what stage you're at. You could be the grandparent, that of the expectant baby coming in. It's like, hey, give them the books. Just say, hey, look, this is a little bit like reading. Read it when you want, okay? It's there. Oh, I don't need the book. Believe me, they're going to go to that book when you're not around. So you've got somebody that's expecting, give them the book. You've got somebody with a toddler, give them the book. He's got stacks of books there. For whatever stage that child is at, give them the book, because it's something that's going to help both of them, even if it's just one thing out of that book that helps them in that relationship with their child. Hallelujah, right? Everything helps. So thanks so much, Amen, for being here. And until next time, folks, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. Please tune in to our selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows, and you will see all the other genres that we have from you. Every week on Tuesday, we bring you new shows from illuminating people. If you know someone that should be interviewed, please contact us at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com. Now stay tuned for your next show.